Good morning, everyone. My name is Kipp Snow. I'm the director of the Transportation Distribution and Logistics Institute at the Community College of Baltimore County. Hi, Mike.
Hey, Kipp. Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Singer, Community Manager, Baltimore and Chesapeake Bay Shipwatchers. We are a maritime advocacy. What? I have trouble saying that every week.
Advocacy.
Advocacy.
I have the same
Maritime
problem
Advocacy
also.
Group, local maritime advocacy group. We try to help promote all things that have to do with the port. And now we have this podcast, and just another way of getting information out in a timely manner, packing it all into one place instead of a bunch of different posts on Facebook or InstaFace, Twix, whatever.
Twix. We're on episode 9.
Episode 9 with my tiger stripes. You like these?
Yeah, we were just talking about that in prep and the lighting. So yeah.
Yeah, I did do a bunch of different stuff, but yeah.
We continue to progress.
Huh?
We continue to progress. You got your fancy microphone.
I do.
You got your stuff, so we're good.
Fancy microphone and the right coffee cup. Look at that.
That's right.
So both logos are represented.
There you go. I'm repping my home beach there, Folly Beach down in South Carolina.
Folly Beach.
Yeah,
that's a new one for me. Where in South Carolina?
It's right off of Charleston. It's a nice little community type beach.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have all of the Ocean City type attractions.
Now, see, I grew up in Ocean City craziness. Me and my wife, and our families before us, and now we're getting ready to have a grandbaby here in a few days, and so we're like, okay, next year, Ocean City.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Little Landon's first trip to the beach. We got to go. You can't not go. It's family. It's 100 years of family tradition or more.
Because rite of passage.
Right. So the Trimper rides in Ocean City.
Mm-hmm.
So my mom has memories. Now she's gone, but she has memories of when she was a little girl riding in the back of the car. She was so little, she was resting her head on the transmission hump,
mm-hmm.
right, and sleeping while they took their grandfather down to Ocean City to live for the summer because his sinuses and everything were so messed up that he basically had to go to the ocean for the summer. And so when you go into Trimper rides, and it moves around a little bit, but there's in the back corner, there's some old pictures, and there is a very tall man on a cane with a big old nose, which is kind of like on my mom's side. So that's supposedly my great-grandfather.
Really?
Working at Trimper Ride. Yes, and my uncle wrote Mr. Trimper and got it all confirmed, and
nice.
So we're talking about 100 yeyears of family history of going to Ocean City. So
you guys definitely need to go do that.
We have to go. Oh, awesome. We're going. If we have to be in debt, we're going.
I'm sorry that if you notice, it's podcast is a little bit late in the week. We're recording Saturday morning, so we get to have our Saturday morning coffee.
Yes,
but that one is my fault. I spent the week out at Cub Scout camp.
Awesome.
So yeah, my son was my youngest son was out there for Camp Riverhawk out at Anne Arundel County Fairgrounds, and we had a great time with scouting skills, and I was out there leading the youth staff for the whole week. And so
the Utes,
the youth staff, had about 110 staffers running around camp trying to keep everything going. So that was
110 staffers.
Yeah, but so these are kids. Wow. These are all kids that are in the middle school and high school age that have kind of coming back and either getting service hours or paying it backwards, actually, because they've already gone through it as a kid. But really a great experience. I had a lot of great kids this year, just
that's cool.
Working and everything. So it's really, really rewarding for me to experience that. So
I
sorry.
did. I helped out with a couple of camps from church.
Good.
Yeah, and it was fun. It was crazy. It was frustrating.
Of
It was
course.
nuts. I mean, we still tell some of the same stories. You know, I won't go into any of them, but we've got some crazy stories that we keep just repeating. As a family, and
It's good.
yeah, so it's
Good
fun.
times. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's get down to business. You got some shipping updates. I know that there was a lot of stuff that happened out this week, and while I was
Right.
at camp, I was keeping up with everything. But there's a lot of
Appreciate it.
stuff. So you got some updates.
Yeah. So, this week is interesting because, the thing that we've all been waiting for, right?
Mhm.
Even when it was so far off that we couldn't even know when it would happen, you know, when the Dali, the ship that crashed into the Key Bridge, would actually leave the port and, get the heck out of here. And so it happened on Monday, right? And so we had some friends in from out of town. I took off on Monday, and then, a work week, and, July 4th coming up. Our daughter is very pregnant. There's a lot going on. And then I almost forgot, like, the Dolly. Oh, yeah. When did that? This week? Oh, geez. We got to talk. Anyway, just crazy. So, not a whole lot of specifics this week. I didn't well, there were a few, and we'll get to them, but I want to just talk about port generalities and how things are recovering, kind of a recovery report, if you will. So, cruises are back to normal. The tankers are in and out and switching, berths and terminals like they normally would. Domino has a sugar ship back at the factory. Oh,
With Domino, I did see a picture this week that the steel frame for the
and you
sugar
know
shed
what?
is up.
I had it.
Okay,
I have it.
that's where I saw it then. All
I
right.
didn't I didn't put it in my whole thing.
May-
So that
Maybe maybe for next week we see what else they've done and we can.
right, we can show a progression. Maybe we'll have to just skip over. Darn, I don't know how I missed that. See, that's what happens when you cram the day
I think
before a
you
test.
I think you have some legitimate excuses there.
Well, life, we all have. We had a dear friend of ours, and he when we all played together in a band at church, and he said, it's amazing that back before people were working from home, and right,
Mhm.
when people actually went to work every day, and everybody went to work every day. He said, it's a wonder with so much stuff that we all have going on in life. It's a wonder we get any work done. Because there's always something that you have to handle, right? There's something you have to get fixed at your house or your car, or there's always something going on that you have to handle, and you have to handle it during the day because that's the only time businesses are open. Anyway,
Right.
so yeah, Domino, sugar back to receiving ships. Coal is back to normal. Console is just kicking them out. They're doing the old thing where they've got the ship and it's almost full, and then they bring another one into the anchorage, kind of sitting there waiting. And as soon as this one pulls out, the other one pulls in, and they're rolling through it.
Well, we were out
Um,
on the pier last Friday, Pier 13 last Friday.
oh
We were
right,
watching some of that, and as I was leaving, um, I noticed that the rail cars were just lined up out on the tracks coming into the terminal. So there's a lot of business there.
yeah, yeah. Um, and then so I've got a source at the port, and some of this is so he says that the car imports paper, used cars to Africa, which is a thing. And they're either in very bad shape, or like nobody around here will buy them, or they're just junk. Used cars from Africa, used cars to Africa, discharge ro-ro. So, right, so the difference, and even I forget about the differentiation between car imports and discharge ro-ro. So car imports are very specific.
Mm-hmm.
Discharge ro-ro is basically everything else, I think, that comes off of a ro-ro ship that's not an automobile or like a light truck or an SUV, right? So it could be construction equipment, could be subway cars, could be a
It could be,
transformer, it could be a military helicopter, it could be anything.
and so those things that don't have wheels, like the military helicopters or the big heavy construction equipment, or the
Mm-hmm.
big air conditioning systems, that those get put on ro-ros using a Moffy, which is a flatbed with wheels, and so it can turn
Ah,
anything into a ro-ro piece of equipment.
I was going to call it a wheeled pallet. I didn't even know it had a name.
Yeah, the name of those is called a Moffy, and so that's
All
your
right.
that's your temporary ability to turn something into a
Oh, that's cool.
a row-rowable piece of
Yeah.
piece of equipment. But for those large items that it's not bulk, it's not break bulk, it can't fit into a container. You got to get it
Right.
onto a
Can
ship.
you can you have that pop up like in text, like when you do the editing? Rollable, or what did you say? That would be
Y'all
funny.
have to go back. Yes, new Kip's definitions
You have Kip's definitions of
of material.
nuclear and I can't say advocacy group. Oh, there, fine. There, I
There
just
you
said it.
go.
Okay. Of course, when I don't have to say it, it's easy. So he says all that so car imports paper, which are those brown Spleethoff ships, used cars to Africa, discharge ro-ro, all normal. Containers on big ships, 25%.
Yeah.
We're down. We're still down. And I mean, ships are coming in, and again, I wanted to be able to do this. I wanted to pull up and show you the schedule, and all right, we'll get to it. I mean, the schedule's there every week, every month, so every week, so we'll get around to doing that. But so you go to BaltimoreShipWatchers.com, go to shipping links, third one down, container schedule, and you can look at the container ship schedule for yourself.
Mhm.
So it's pretty cool that that's public and you can see it. So containers on big ships are about 25% of normal. Just to highlight one, um, how would you say this? I should know this as a ship watcher guy. One company, I guess you would say,
One of the steamship
Evergreen,
lines. Yeah. Mhm.
one of the lines, yeah, it was about 2,500 moves a week. So when we talk about moves, I think we're talking about truck transactions. And I still have to learn about how that's calculated. I'd like to be able to talk about what that means and how that interprets to how many containers moved. Maybe it's everything, import and export. I'm still not sure. Anyway, Evergreen was about 2,500 moves a week. Next month, one Evergreen ship.
Mm.
Now, there's a bunch of other ships, and I'll be honest with you, you look at that schedule and you're like, there's no way they're getting 4 and 5 container ships into
Yeah.
that terminal. But some days there's 4 and 5 ships lined up, and it's liquid and it moves around and they adjust the schedule online and all that. But
Yeah.
but just to highlight one, and that's one of the bigger ones, Evergreen, and we've got one ship a month. It used to probably be, about one a week.
Mhm.
I mean, they weren't coming in here, like crazy, like coal ships, but so yeah. Also, of course, that means a lot of people's paychecks are still not back to normal, and the assistance from the state was cut off this
Yeah.
week. So, you know, everybody is saying, oh, everything's back to normal and everything looks great, but um,
There are still some hiccups with the ramp up, and
yeah,
some of those cargo ships coming in. Keep in mind, not everything every container that you see on that ship that comes into the port, not every container is going to be offloaded.
is
You've got,
coming off
so
here,
you're going to
right?
have,
Like I keep saying, it's just like the Amazon truck or whatever.
correct.
The Amazon truck isn't delivering 1,246 packages to your house,
Right.
He'll do one or two and then go to the next stop and go to the next stop. I mean, maybe not a perfect analogy, but
And so
I
some
think a lot of people, who are new ship watchers, they tend to think that things come to town and everything's off or everything's on. And sometimes, with a coal ship, it comes in empty, it fills up. We've got these dramatic, like, before and after pictures at the coal berth. One of our Scott Hoggard, I think is his name, who takes those really cool before and after pictures.
mhm.
Like you can see the ship sitting way up high, and then when it's getting ready to leave, it's way down on the water, like almost to the red stripe. It's kind of cool.
The other thing to put it in maybe some layman's terms, look at what some people may be familiar with aviation travel. Going to the airport, you go to go to the terminal, and then you walk
Mm-hmm.
down to your gate, and you wait there at the gate until you can board the plane. That gate isn't just for that one flight that's coming in. You may have 4, 5, 6, 10 different flights over
A
different
day,
carriers coming into that same gate for
right?
loading and offloading, and it could be small planes or big planes, and dependent on lots of different factors will mean who comes through that particular gate. So look at it from that perspective.
It's a good point. It's a good point. So Seagirt is still operating only one shift, whereas they were running like three shifts.
Yeah.
So that's another thought. Something else, another update. Since the Dali's gone, since most of the key bridge work is done. I mean, I've hardly seen any activity out there at all. So both the big cranes, the Weeks 533, so they name all their cranes by their name, and then they give them a number. The Weeks 533, which was the big one that was over top of the bow of the Dali, pulling stuff off, and the Chesapeake 1000, which I don't know if you know about this. The Chesapeake 1000 used to be the Sun 800, and it was designed to pull a Russian sub off the sea floor.
Oh,
So fascinating backstory to that. With that could be a half a podcast right there. Anyway,
sure.
but the Chesapeake. So those two big cranes. So that the Chesapeake 1000 was the thing that had the giant grapple
Mhm.
that was like 30 feet high, and they were pulling off massive pieces of steel and truss off the bottom. So both of those cranes are gone. Right. So we really are in a transition period to where you know, okay, the dolly's gone, the ship's gone, the cranes are gone, and then back to some normalcy until we are going again with
I,
the next part of the process.
in some of the pictures of the dolly leaving, and there was you could see a piece, the concrete, that little piece of concrete that was still on the
Right.
resting on the front end. And I thought, what, that's I'm a little jealous. You got a little souvenir to take with you, and from that, I know that that's not the concept, but I was like, okay, you took a little piece with you.
Right. And how many tons? I mean, I think we talked about this last week, those so let me see if I can do this. So this A pillar, right, that holds up the bridge, it's four legs that go up, right? And then there's a giant piece of concrete that attaches at the top. Like that's what's laying on top of the dolly bow. That whole chunk of concrete, and it looks small in this picture. And maybe we'll see some other pictures later on in the podcast. But I mean, that's a massive piece of cement. And I don't know if I have the pictures, but it's so massive, Kipp. It's so massive that they put up scaffolding and 3 and 4 flights of steps to get from the bow to the top of the piece of this concrete.
Sure.
I mean, just think about that. 3 or 4 flights of steps worth of concrete
Mm-hmm.
sitting on the bow of a ship. And it's not just one little piece, it's a whole chunk that's, okay, so we're talking about a roadway right off the top of your head, how big is the roadway? I mean, how wide is this thing? 50. It's got to be more than heck. It's 50 feet tall, right?
This is
So
this is
how?
yeah. This is
Yeah.
not a piece that three people can walk up, say, "Hey, grab that side, and let's just
Well, supposedly it was challenging just to move it. So supposedly it's bigger than they can lift. I think they're going to have to cut it at Norfolk. It's a dynamic situation. I was told it was too big for them to lift. Now I think the same crane, the Weeks 533, is down there where they moved the Dali. But let's get to that.
Okay.
So the Dali left on Monday, and I'm going to read some of this because I want to get it right. The Coast Guard spoke about the coordination and planning, and the spokesperson said there were a lot of people involved. This is from Lieutenant Mike Long, Coast Guard Sector, Virginia. Meetings before the transit involved a lot of players to include Port Authority, terminal operators, pilots, salvage teams, the owner, the operator, and the crew aboard the Dali, and countless others to be sure that a relatively straightforward transit through the Chesapeake Bay is completed with minimal impact. And I'm going to speak to this a little bit more. So, 4 tugs, a Coast Guard escort, and a salvage boat. And we have some pictures, and we'll show you some of those in a minute. So remember, she had no anchors. So you've got to make this trend. We talked about this last week, but you've got to make this transit in one shot. And as I'll show you, it actually, you think, okay, Baltimore to Norfolk, it's just a straight line. Well, it is, but it isn't, because for the big ships, the shipping channel doesn't go due south. They have to go over the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, out into the ocean a little bit, make a U, which sounds funny for, what is this, a 1,100-foot long ship, make a U, come back across, the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel in the southern channel that leads to Norfolk, and then go down to the berth in Norfolk. And they had to do it all in one shot. It took like more than 20 hours to do that. And if you remember, Monday was a really windy day.
Yeah.
I mean, really windy, like 15 to 25. I was kind of surprised they went ahead and did it because, but I mean, they did. And I don't know if we have pictures of it, but they kept the tugs right on the hull in the middle. They had 2 tugs like right on it. Now I think they let go once they got past, the Bay Bridge. And this is just from looking at marine traffic and looking at the little symbols in AIS. It looks like they kind of, let it go under its own power, but they all followed them all the way down there.
They also have some harbor pilots that are based down there who also are in coordination with the local transit for what they need within their harbor space.
Yeah. So, and then a little bit different from our last reports. So 4 of the existing crew members went along because of familiarity with the ship. So there was a new crew. So remember we talked about, what was it, 11 or 13 had to stay in Baltimore. They got off the ship. They were put up in an apartments, or 8 were free to leave, but 4, and I'm not sure which 4, stayed with the ship for its transition down to Norfolk, just to, I guess, have a handoff to the new crew. So that's something that we didn't realize. All right, let's see if we can go to some photos here. All right, so here we have, this is when the Dali was just off the berth, and you can see the empty part at the pier there. That's where she was. And here she is coming, starting to make that turn. And when you look at maps, when you look at the NOAA maps of the channel, it really doesn't look like there's that much room. But you can see, as she's coming away from that ACL Conroe, there's plenty of room there to make that turn. and be away from the other ship. And here we go past Dundalk Marine Terminal. And this is a nice shot. You can see the whole city and Fort McHenry in the background.
That is a good perspective right there. Also from that side view, we've seen it so much with the with the with the bridge connected to it, but to actually see it moving.
Right. And so if you look at, I might have a better picture of it coming up, but when you look at where the containers end, that whole row of containers, that was all pulled off when the bridge was still on top of it, because they wanted to take all those containers off so that they could be in behind the damage area, so they could look at it and maybe have some equipment up there to help them. Let's see. There we go. That's now you're starting to see how much damage is still there. And if you can look up on the bow just to the left of Dali, you can see the steps leading up to, so people can get up on top of that giant chunk of concrete from the bridge. And it just
So that tells me, even though we're a fluid situation, you're dealing with not a traditional or typical standard operating procedure. You're still following safety practices to make sure that everybody from this point forward is safe through through a very difficult situation, and doing things like that. It's not that they're just climbing on top; they're putting those safety
right.
Safety solutions in place. Sure.
Right. And then I don't know if you can see, but can you see all those yellow straps?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
they have tried to strap all those damaged containers down so that they can't come off in transit.
Yeah.
We don't want to have to go back and pick up more stuff after we just got done clearing the whole Key Bridge. You don't want to leave a trail of, yeah. Even though there was a salvage boat that went along, and supposedly their purpose was to monitor, make sure nothing fell off, and if they do, mark it so they can come back and get it. And so here's a shot where you can see they had some kind of, I don't know, protective, I don't even know what it was, sheet of something that kind of covered up the big gouge in the starboard side of the bow that was left from the accident. And you can see here I think this is the Bridget McAllister is turning loose the bow line. She was kind of pulling her out, and this is almost at the point where the channel that leads from Seagirt and Dundalk Marine Terminal out to the main Fort McHenry Channel, which we've all heard that name a ton of times now. This is almost to the transition point, I think. Another up close look of them turning loose the line. And then
wow,
there's a dramatic shot that I think ironic, and
yeah,
a lot of people been waiting for that picture. And I think it's good to have this stuff on the podcast because not everybody sees everything on Facebook or Instagram. And just like I keep saying, the way Facebook algorithm shows things, if 10 people comment on 5 other posts, the one with all these cool pictures just drops down until somebody likes or comments, and then it pops back up to the top. So I think it's important to show these because people might not have seen them. And then, so shout out to my friend John, who was on the tug Gale in the background coming inbound, and he works the new concrete road sections that they're putting on the old Chesapeake Bay Bridge.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So at nighttime, they shut it down and they cut a giant section off with a crane, put it on a barge, take a brand new section that's being prefabbed and at a yard in Curtis Bay. They're prefabricating these like cast isn't the right term, sections
Mm-hmm.
of the bridge and lifting them whole en masse up onto the bridge, bolt or weld them in place, whatever. The next day you drive over 2 new sections, you're clueless.
That is the craziest concept, and I knew that what they were doing. I didn't know that they were being done in Curtis Bay, but that's yes, that is absolutely the process, and it's
And it is kind of cool, you know. Every once in a while, I get a call from my professional tug buddy, and he tells me what's going on, you know. And then sometimes he's like, "Wait a minute, you're the Shipwatchers guy, and you don't know what this means." I'm like, "I'm a social media guy. I think this
yes.
stuff is cool, but I don't know everything, you know."
The only
I'm,
qualifier for being the ship watcher is that you like to watch ships. I mean, that doesn't
yeah.
have to know everything.
Are you a ship geek? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, you checked off the only box on the application. You're done. Uh,
Exactly.
all right, let's see what else we have here. So, yeah. So you can see some barges. You can see Fort Carroll on the right there. And so she's cleared the bridge site, former bridge site. I don't even like saying that. So this is interesting. So let's look at
Yes.
this. You can go on marine traffic, and you can see the path of Dali, and you can see she has this crazy jagged. Let's go out to sea, which I find is really ironic and interesting, right? Because every place that a tunnel or a bridge crosses a federal channel, which, and by that, what I mean and what I think that means is it's federally maintained from a dredging
Correct.
standpoint.
Correct.
Okay, when crosses a federal shipping channel, the Army Corps of Engineers is involved, right? To the point that most bridges are designed to be perpendicular to the shipping channel. So they have a voice, and it's very important. And I just find it interesting that nobody has seen the value in, like, you can see this here. Let me go to the next photo. Like, to cut off this corner and put, I mean, maybe it's just not worth it. There aren't enough ships that go Baltimore to Norfolk. I'm sure that's what it is, because now what do you do with all that dredge? You
Right.
just made a brand new channel that's how many miles long? And so, how many cubic feet of dredge is that? And where do you put it? And where are you going to keep putting it for the next 50 or 100 years? Right. So, that's the problem that Baltimore deals with. That's the problem that Norfolk deals with. And you deal with it till the end of time.
I, I
It never stops.
I wonder if it's, and this is probably something we could do some research on and look
Mm-hmm.
into, or I'm
Sure.
maybe somebody will chime in and
Wait,
tell
do
us.
we do research? Do
Yeah,
we prepare for this thing, or are we just seated your pants? Saturday morning coffee. Here we go.
exactly. No, there may be what it may be what is the cost trade off versus the effort. So it may be cheaper to maintain this particular lane model.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we don't. I don't personally know what the riverbed makeup or the harbor bed makeup
Mm.
is to go and try to cut something right here.
Mm-hmm.
It could be based on previous decisions for dredging, and they got it to this point. Um, but it may not be possible to dredge that little cut through,
Hmm.
just because of what's underneath underneath the water at those points.
It's a great point. I mean, that seems pretty obvious, but I really didn't
I,
think of that.
I also wonder, like, what are some of the traditional routing structures? So if the port route structure involves like a Norfolk to Baltimore to New Jersey type transaction,
Hmm.
you're not going to have a lot of I wonder how many ships actually come down and try to make that corner, or doing
Right.
that, and
Right.
where is the value in spending that extra amount of money to dredge that if you don't just have the volume that's going like that? Are we seeing more in and out into Norfolk, or
Mm-hmm.
or is it in and out into Baltimore and they're bypassing Norfolk? So there's a lot of different reasons there.
Right. I was trying to pull up something. So I've got an internet friend, for lack of a better term,
Mhm.
that I've never met, who is really cool. He John Morgan down in Norfolk area, and he basically takes a picture of every ship that comes to Baltimore, and tags me Balto Ches at Balto Ches,
Okay.
every single one. So he's taking a picture of every ship that comes in anyway. I asked him to tag me when he gets a picture of a ship coming to Baltimore, and so he documents, you know,
Cool.
hey, whatever, the mayor so and so going out to Buoy 18, hanging a Huey, and then going up to Baltimore, right? So one a week, to maybe two or three a week.
Okay.
Um, I don't think it's a lot, but it does happen. So let's get back to this photo. So what I've circled here are basically the tunnel portals. As the roadway disappears into a tunnel and comes back up the other side. So I wanted to circle that so people can kind of see, as it's transitioning through those two tunnels. I think that's pretty cool. I think, yeah. Let's stop that for now. So, where was I? um, yeah. So, you want to talk about? We do have a couple of notables from this week.
Yeah.
So, the John W. Brown, our own Liberty ship, which is 80 years old, still runs on the original triple steam expansion engine.
Hmm.
Made here in Baltimore, manufactured here in Baltimore 80 years ago, went to war, and so she's a museum ship here. She goes out for a few cruises a year, so she took out some Sea Cadets, I think, for an overnight.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that?
Yeah. All right. I do have some pictures here that I want to show related to the Dali, but there's a couple
Mhm.
of things that are happening. The first is the John Brown is due for a some
Dry dock.
work and I believe they're going to go down to Norfolk also for down to Kelowna's shipyard.
Mm-hmm.
They received a congressional spending grant to
Hmm.
help pay for the work to the ship that needs to happen while it's in
Wow.
dry dock down there. And they're a little bit short, so they've got a fundraiser campaign, and these are grant matching funds that they are soliciting to help with the federal grant money that they've received to do the
Wow.
upgrades and repairs that they need to keep the ship afloat.
That's incredible.
So they've
I didn't
got
know it was like a federal grant. I just know that they had some funds that somebody said they were going to match, and so that's cool.
Yeah,
Wow.
so
I didn't
there's
know
some
that.
they've got the opportunity. They received partial funding to handle these repairs, but they've got to match what that is as part of the grant outline. So
Right.
they're in a fundraising period of trying to make that up. If
Mm-hmm.
anybody's interested in helping with that, this is one solicitation here. You can go to the website that you see down at the bottom of this flyer, ssjohnwbrown.org/fund-raiser, and you can donate if you so choose. Let me see if I can click the. No, it's not
And I think you can do a one-time or a recurring thing, like if you wanted to do
correct.
whatever. I mean, I'm sure they'd be thrilled with whatever you could donate, but I'm just throwing a number. What, $20 a month
Yeah.
or whatever.
What if that's something that you can help support, there are those opportunities like that, and every dollar counts really. So
Absolutely.
the other thing that was interesting was that I came across that they are advertising on eBay
Oh, that's right.
a crew pass opportunity. So you can bid for the opportunity to be an honorary crew member, and you and a guest get to come and actually go through some of the processes. In participate in some of the drills. You get to steer the ship for just a little bit.
What?
This crew pass it includes accommodations on board overnight and all meals. And so when I read into it, they said that your overnight accommodations are in the bunks there. So I was like, that'd still be cool to. I would still be
Yeah.
interested in doing that. But so you're not. This isn't like cruise ship accommodations.
No. Well.
This is you're going to be on the Brown in period.
Yeah. You're
Quarters.
not going to be. You're not going to be in one of the officers'
Right.
quarters up top. You're going to be. You're going to get the real
You're going to get
experience.
the real treatment there, yeah. But this is a great experience to be able to see how the ship operated back,
Awesome.
during World War II.
So
Um,
cool.
you can go, you can either search on eBay for John Brown or go to their website with the link to it. But I believe the
Hmm.
auction's around $2,500, $2,700 right now of bid.
Really?
Really, yeah, I was impressed with that.
And to be honest with you, I didn't realize it was on eBay.
Oh, okay.
I haven't seen the link.
Okay.
You know,
Oh,
I've seen a post about it and I heard about it, but I haven't seen a link. I didn't know it was on eBay. Wow, and so there's bidders and it's up.
yeah,
Wow,
it's up and it's moving forward. We'll
that's really cool.
I'll look for the link and put the link here at the bottom of the page
Okay.
so that if anybody's interested, they can go take a look at that.
Yeah.
So
Now people won't be able to click. I mean, they can't like click on it in the yeah. I mean,
no,
it's
but at least give everybody a where to go and they can go on
mm-hmm.
their own. But
Cool.
this is for the voyage for when they leave Pier 13 here and go down to Norfolk for the
For the dry dock.
for the dry dock.
Yes.
And so then there'll be a bus that brings you back the next day.
Right, with the rest of the crew, because the idea that I got is that and I forget how long they're going to be down there, like a month or something.
I'm not sure,
Off the
but
top of my head,
it's
they told me, I don't remember, but it's not insignificant,
correct.
um, and so they actually have to figure out who can we get to be on the crew to go down and who can we get on the crew to come back, because it's not necessarily the same people.
Correct.
And so if you're on the crew to take it down, then they'll bus you back, and vice versa. They'll bus you down there to meet the ship to bring it back.
So this is a really cool opportunity, and it's also a fundraising opportunity to help them to offset these costs associated with that. So,
Brilliant. I don't know who came up with this idea, but
exactly,
you know,
you get a point for that one.
yeah,
Yeah, but
one bonus point, one ship watcher's bonus
one
point.
ship watcher's bonus point. Yeah, this is all important though. And the reason why, yes, the John Brown is a museum ship. It's an important piece of our local and maritime history. But they're doing some good work on the ship, and the volunteers are all helping with learning environments. So they also the John Brown is also a training ship for U.S. Navy Sea Cadet Corps. And
Mm-hmm.
so this week they had some of the U.S. Navy Sea Cadets who were out
Mm-hmm.
there training, and I've got some pictures that they had up on their.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so these are this is an advanced training. So if you're of the age and you join the U.S. Navy Sea Cadets, they have an orientation training that you go through, and then you go through an advanced training. And there's if you look at their the Sea Cadet website, it explains that the Sea Cadets have different advanced training options that they could choose from, and one of them is on the John Brown. And in
Hmm.
their particular training focuses on the seamanship skill set. So they learn things like line handling. The picture you see here is lifeboat operations where they put them out into a lifeboat. They had some other pictures where you could see the boat out further out in the river.
Mm-hmm.
but they go through classroom environments like what you see here. On this is on the John Brown, and I believe um, in the front end of the ship is where they have the
Yeah, and this is in one of the holds,
correct,
right?
correct, yeah,
So what if you look under between the tables there, you can see like the original wood flooring of the hold,
correct.
right? And so, wartime, this is filled with equipment
Yes,
and, so it just kind of, I think a lot of times we lose sight of that or we forget, okay, we go on the John Brown and, there's a bunch of stuff going on, but hey, what was this used for 80 years ago? What would this room look like? It wouldn't look like this.
I believe in I don't know if it's in this hold or the next hold behind where this picture is centered. They have a piece of glass or plex, a clear flooring that
Oh yeah.
allows you to look into the lower part, and they still have, I believe there's a tank in there. There's a jeep. There's munitions. There are still some of the equipment from.
Yeah, I think a Jeep.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've seen the Jeep down in there. So I mean, again, it still gives you that perspective of what the types of equipment and things that can be carried. But
Mm-hmm.
they have the classroom environment like what you see here, and then they also practice. They learn the line handling, and you can see
Mm-hmm.
going through some of those progressions and learning about that. And they also cover steering, navigation, so some of the engine room operations and winch operations. So life aboard a vessel. Now I know that this is a World War II era ship, and that's quite different than what we have in today's um, environments. However,
Sure.
navigation is navigation, steering is steering, and so this gives them a chance to
Lines are lines, and
yes,
you're
and
lifting things up, and you're putting the. I mean, it's
so in this particular class, they left out of Pier 13, went down to the Annapolis Anchorage, and spent the evening there. I think that they had in their ship log they had a movie night. I'm curious what their movie was, but and then they came back. So that's some really really neat things to
now. I wonder if they chose a maritime movie just because like they felt like they had to, or just you know whatever, just put something funny
something.
on and
Sure.
let people just kind of have fun. And
So while the John Brown is here, and it's a really great piece of Baltimore maritime connectivity, it
Mhm.
does have a function and a role that's supporting our national maritime operations.
Yeah, and I think because of the bridge collapse, I think they had to cancel their summer cruise for
Yeah,
this year.
and so that was another
And
fundraiser of theirs.
yes, and then sometimes they try to make two of them. But yeah, I think so. Yeah, so I wanted to talk about a couple little things.
Okay,
So let me. So this is kind of. I'm trying to share my screen here. Get to the photos. Okay. Think there we go. So this is the Dale Pyatt dredge. Now this was doing a lot of work on the Key Bridge. So this isn't the Weeks 533 that was doing stuff on the bow of the Dali, right? And this isn't the Chesapeake 1000 that was picking up the big giant chunks of truss that weighed hundreds of tons. But this is our own little celebrity that operates in the background that basically does most of the maintenance dredging every winter. It's staged here in Curtis Bay, and so it was out there helping too. So, and here it is, and it's at home in its natural habitat. So I thought this was cool.
oh,
So here's the John Brown coming back from said cruise that we just mentioned, and we happen to catch the Vision of the Seas, and it looks like it's being escorted by a Coast Guard boat there.
hmm.
So I thought that was a nice view, a nice
Just the
photo.
size comparison of that of the John
Right.
Brown against a cruise ship.
And and that's a small cruise ship.
Mm-hmm.
That's not even one of the, I don't know, medium sized ones or regular sized ones that you would see. And I'm not talking about the new crazy monster
Yeah,
sized
yeah,
one.
yeah.
I'm talking about, when you look at that camera or whatever, you ever see the sped up camera of all the
Mm-hmm.
cruise ships coming in, and
Mm-hmm.
then they turn around and go, you know, like at Fort Lauderdale or Miami, those are huge cruise ports.
Sure.
Um, and the ships are, I don't know, 1.5 times as tall as this one, and 1.25 as long, and 1.5 as wide. So this is a small cruise ship, but yeah, look at the size comparison from World War II to just 20 years ago.
Right.
Let's see, what else do I have here? Oh, and the thing that may only interest me.
Mm. That ship looks familiar.
Yeah, how about that? Looks familiar. Why would that look familiar? Because ironically, when the Dali went to Norfolk, guess who was in the berth in front of it at the container terminal? Its sister ship, the Saltoro,
Mm.
made it at the exact same time, same size, sister ship. And then 2 days later, she comes up here to Seagirt. Kind of crazy when you think about it,
Yeah.
especially when you think about this next thing. And I wish I could make this bigger, and I don't think. Wait a minute, is it getting bigger?
Yep.
Is it? So this is a terminal block that they're investigating. Okay, so we take a look at that, and then hang on here. Okay, so this is a small update to the NTSB's report that was initially issued on May 14th. And I'm just going to read it because I feel it's important that I get all this wording correct instead of me trying to ad lib it. During the accident voyage, electrical breakers HR1 and LR1 unexpectedly opened when the vessel was 3 ship lengths from the key bridge. Now, we kind of knew that, but causing the first loss of electrical power to all shipboard lighting and most equipment. While examining and testing the vessel's electrical power distribution system and control circuitry, NTSB investigators, along with the crew, noted an interruption in the control circuit for HR1's under voltage release. Now, I don't know a lot about electricity. I can fix a video game or a pinball machine, but when you're talking about high power and phasing and how to operate a
Understood.
so
So
I don't know what this means. So
I'm in the same boat.
right, is that a pun?
Yes.
Okay. Uh, but yeah. So let me go back. While examining and testing the vessel's electrical power distribution system, control circuitry, NTSB investigators noted an interruption in the control circuit for HR1's under voltage release. So it's an electrical breaker that has what's the word I'm looking for? Like a reference designator or a moniker, a name, like if it was on the schematic. So an under voltage release is a device that opens the breaker when the voltage fails or falls below a predetermined threshold. So there's not enough voltage supply, and then it turns it off so things don't get damaged. Or I don't know enough about it, but there's a reason why they want it to cut off when there's not enough voltage. NTSB investigators subsequently removed an electrical component, that terminal block that I just showed you. Of course, that was a new terminal block from a catalog,
Sure.
but the same one, the same model number. From the control circuit for HR1's under voltage release, 2 portions of control wiring associated with the terminal block were also removed. So that's interesting when you think about. So how did they rewire it, or what requirements did they have for operating the ship with a terminal block and a breaker removed or unwired? Anyway, we continue to examine the removed components at the NTSB Materials Laboratory. We will continue to evaluate the design and operation of the vessel's electrical power distribution system and investigate all aspects of the accident to determine probable cause and identify potential safety recommendations going forward, I would imagine.
That's interesting that they're looking not only at the accident component, but also the whole electrical power system itself as part of the
Right, because
investigation.
it shut off, which caused all the power in the ship to shut off, which caused uh, a catastrophic accident.
So they're gonna fine tooth comb everything. They're not just looking at just okay. Let's look at this one specific thing. They're going to look at everything across the ship.
Right. Now, the thing that we all don't want to talk about is all those sister ships. I think there's 8 or 9 of them. Do they have the same components? Are they wired the same way? Do they might they have the same weakness, if you will? And then the thing that we really don't want to think about, the sister ship Saltoro came up here 3 days later after the Dali left and made it out of here. But
Are there any records of related power failures among those class ships or sister ships?
right, and then we had kind of talked about this, and I had talked about it with an engineer friend of mine. Okay, there was that power failure that happened at the dock at Seagirt while she was still tied up. Now, Alex told us that had nothing to do with the power failure that happened
Mm-hmm.
out by the Key Bridge.
Right.
But I guess the thing is that they really didn't notify anybody. Like, people wind up finding out, but they didn't notify anybody. And I guess that power failure happened. So,
Sure.
Your question that you just asked, you know, if nobody's reporting something that happened while they're docked at Seagirt, is anybody reporting when this stuff happens on 8 different ships in a myriad of places
Right.
across the world? You know, is there? I mean, there's the NTSB, but it's not like it's the FAA who will issue, I don't know, a recommendation or a requirement, and that so
I wonder.
everything that comes into the U.S. has to, you know, is required to follow that. I don't.
Sure.
Is there a overseeing shipping? I know there are some, but do they have?
Yeah.
Do they do those kind of things? Do they have those kind of alerts? Do they?
I think the area that we need to look at is the Federal Maritime Commission, the FMC, and they're going to have some jurisdictions. If you look at what the FAA does within the airline industry, and that's you hear a lot more about that because there is that, or at least in the local and national news, because you see a tremendous amount of general public engagement with the aviation industry. Um,
Yes.
Lots of people can understand. Okay, I can go to an airport and I can catch a flight to the West Coast. I can get on a plane. There's air traffic control. There's the FAA. There's Boeing and Airbus who manufactures the plane. All of that kind of
Mm-hmm.
we can understand that because we see a lot of the mainstream news surrounding that, but there's not as much of a focus on the maritime industry from that perspective, and I would personally equate that to you don't have a lot of people, general public people, utilizing the maritime industry for general public
Right.
transactions. I get the cruise industry. That you can sell me on the ferries and those types of commercial operations, but we don't have a very large waterborne transportation industry like the aviation industry exists. But
Or even like, I mean, if you're talking about locally, even like New York or some other places like maybe San Francisco or Seattle, where there's a bunch of ferries and people
correct,
are taking them every day to go to work. It's we don't. It's just different here.
right. So I think let's take a look at the what the Federal Maritime Commission might be saying about all of this. Also,
Mm,
we can do some research on that.
okay.
Key Bridge. I think now we're starting to go into this transition period away from kind of recovery to okay, what are the next steps? And I think
Right.
there is some movement on the bridge rebuild.
Right. Yeah. So this one is, to be honest with you, I don't know exactly what this means either, but I wanted to report it. So Maryland's Board of Public Works will consider at its next meeting $50 million contract between the Maryland Transit Authority and, how do you pronounce that? Skanska,
Skanska, I believe.
a Swedish construction company, for removal, disposal, and cleanup of debris following the collapse of the Key Bridge. This proposal is on the July 3rd agenda, which was posted Friday. The debris consist mainly of large sections of highway bridge truss, steel girders, and the bridge deck and concrete parapets. Um, the agenda item stated. So, I do we is that the existing roadway that's left? Is that what that means?
I believe so. So the state's public works board, addresses your major utility and infrastructure operations within the state. So
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be involved in that contractual agreement with the different entities. It looks like and we talked a little bit in previous podcast about the way that this particular construction project is going to take place, utilizing multiple resources collaborating at one time in order to get this project moving forward quickly. This is
Mm-hmm.
one of those components, and so this looks like the Swedish company is going to come in and manage that process of the bridge removal in conjunction with whoever is accepted to build the bridge. So they're going to have to work with all of those parties together. So this is just
Oh, so you think this is kind of a subcomponent of, because that's what they said, but now this seems like it's separate. So
yeah.
I
No,
that's why I was like, what is this talking about? I was a little confused.
no, you've got you. From the way that you explained it, subcomponent is probably a good way to describe it, but it's that full collaborative effort, and so I don't know if I would call it a sub. I would just say more from a everybody is at the same table working collectively, and this is just one of the
Mm-hmm.
named processes in the overall project.
And then some information about money for the bridge. So we've all heard some of this stuff, but the Biden administration wants an additional $3.1 billion from the Department of Transportation, which would go towards rebuilding the Key Bridge, with the federal government picking up the entire tab. I wouldn't get hung up. I mean, I know it's a lot of money, but um, so what the backstory was is that they had asked for some money from Congress for other emergencies, and they never got the money. So now they're putting some of that on top of the Key Bridge money and asking for a bigger pot that's going to cover the Key Bridge money, and then some money for these other emergencies that we asked that didn't pass through
Mhm.
Congress the last time. All right. So nearly $80 million would go to the Coast Guard to compensate for its unplanned costs responding to the March Bridge collapse. And let's talk about that for a second, because what by the collapse was 1:30 in the morning. By 4 o'clock in the morning, there were 40 or 50 divers ready to go. There were Coast Guard assets that came in from New Jersey and Norfolk and all over the place, right? And so you imagine there's a whole bunch of overtime,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's the military and everybody already gets paid anyway. But if you're overtime, like anybody else working a job, you expect to get paid for said overtime. You're
Right.
not on a salary. You're not going to be, you don't go from working 8 hours a day to 12-hour shifts for 2 or 3 weeks or a month or whatever it is and not be paid for the extra time that you put in. Right. So I think we lose sight of that sometimes. And another 33 million, which was interesting. I thought that number would be reversed, like Army Corps would be more, but and another 33 million designated for the Army Corps of Engineers for expenses related to records removal. And remember when we met Colonel Pinchason at the port
Mm-hmm.
meeting, and she was saying, "Hey, we're not going to wait, but the piles of money have to be organized and everything. We can't just go do stuff without money. We can't do it." So they actually had to take some of their maintenance funds, pull the money out, and I guess put it in the emergency pile
Mm-hmm.
so that they could, hit the ground running on organizing and working on this key bridge recovery. So I'm guessing that's
That's what
what
part
that
of this
means.
is because that money was pulled from a different line in an operating budget, and that means that the work that money was allocated towards can't happen, and
Right.
so they still have to get that replenished no matter what.
Because they took whatever 30-40% out of that checking account, right? And now they can't, right? In our terms,
Correct.
right? And now they can't do that. Well, they were promised until they get the federal government to, drop a check in their maintenance checking account
Yes.
so they can go back to doing dredging or whatever else was on their annual plan for this year.
And as much as everybody would like to go and do this out of the kindness of their heart, there's still a cost associated with it also, and somebody's got to pay for it. The
Yeah.
money's got to come from somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, sometimes you see, on Facebook or, keyboard warriors. Oh my God, how can we, I mean, you got people are working, you got to pay them. And,
Right.
um, yeah. So, I thought this was interesting. So this kind of flew by me, in your Facebook feed and zoom,
Mm-hmm.
right. And, was it, what I forget who it was. Was it McAllister or was it Moran? All right, I'm gonna get a nasty gram from one of our local buddies.
Don't
No, I'm
worry,
kidding.
somebody will correct you. So just move forward with it. You're okay.
Yeah, right. Right. So this Tuesday was International Day of the Seafarer. So when we think about our buddy Josh Messick, who runs the
Mhm.
Baltimore
Yeah.
International Seafarer Center, who works really hard at visiting all the seafarers that visit the port, and we think about the seafarers that were stuck here for 2 months, and so now International Day of the Seafarer. Do
I got some
you have
information
some
on that.
background
Yeah.
information on that? You can
Yeah. So
educate us, as they say.
educate us all, sure. Uh, so the International Day of the Seafarer was established in 2010. So this is relatively recent, but
Mm-hmm.
important. And it was by the International Maritime Organization. The acronym they go by is the IMO. And
Right.
they wanted to recognize the contributions that seafarers make to everybody's lives every day. And that
Mm-hmm.
role of the seafarer goes underappreciated. And I do agree with that within the maritime industry and by the general public.
And the fact that ships have been coming and going for hundreds of years, right?
Correct. Yes.
Literally hundreds of years.
Correct.
And just in 2010, they made the International Day of the Seafarer. It shows you it might be a demonstration of how backseat, you know, people like to say everything arrives by truck, and a lot of it does. But how does it get to the truck?
Correct.
A lot of times it comes off a
Yep.
ship. Well, how did the ship get there? Well, it's got 20 or 30 guys that are out to sea for 6 to 9 to 15 months away from their families,
Just
getting your stuff that you have to have from Amazon.
Correct. That's exactly
right.
So those seafarers are an essential component of world trade, and they keep the economy moving and delivering all of the goods and the products and the even if it's in process or bulk items, all of these items that we use on a daily basis. Today, over 90% of global trade is done by sea, and it's still, even though we have some of the problems that we're talking about, still the safest, most cost effective way to transport goods.
Mm-hmm.
So the IMO has set this year's awareness campaign for the International Day of the Seafarer, to look at the seafarers' contributions in making the maritime sector a safer workplace, including promoting safety tips at sea and training and wearing proper safety gear. We want to thank you to all of the seafarers sailing across the world, including our very own here in the port, and the
Right.
talented men and women that crew our vessels. They're the reasons why McAllister Towing has been able to deliver safe and unsurpassed service into the maritime industry for 160 years. So we thank them, and we thank everybody else who's in our port, and across the world who happen to come into the Port of Baltimore or not in any of the ports. So we thank
Right.
every one of the seafarers that are out there. So
Right.
if you want to learn more about
Mm.
the International Day of the Seafarer, or what the International Maritime Organization, the IMO, does, you can visit their website at imo.org, and there is some information on this program there. So pretty interesting
Okay.
stuff.
Cool. Hey, do you know why ships make terrible comedians?
Give me a second here. I had to make go ahead.
They always miss the boat with their jokes.
Uh,
But
that was a good one. Is that our
all right,
is that now our
two to
week,
one, Mike.
is that our now our weekly dad joke maritime dad joke segment? Excellent.
If we can find them, if they're good enough,
Exactly.
some of them are, if they're really bad. So, I mean, yeah. I mean, the beauty of that first one is it was half, appropriate to what we do,
Sure.
So,
All right.
and I got you. I caught you out of left field. You had no
That
idea
was all
that was
right.
coming.
I'm okay with it.
You sure?
We ready to wrap up for today?
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
You know what? We said we were going to practice. I said that when you and I sat down today before we hit the button, we were gonna rehearse our happy ship watching, and okay, so we still didn't do it.
Let's try it.
Well, let's try. So for me, what I do is I go 1, 2, 3.
How
And
much of a pause are you going to put in between three?
you know what I think? You know what else I think it is? When I looked at it, I think there's a little bit of a delay.
So we just need to both say three, and then we just say it and not worry about trying to time it with the other person.
Okay. Why don't I normally start it? Why don't you start it, and then we'll
Then
see.
I'm going to mess it up.
Oh, well, I've been messing it up for 8 weeks, so it's your turn.
3, 2, 1. Happy ship.
Happy ship watching. It was close. It was close. It was closer than it's been.
Okay.
It's closer than it's been.
I'll practice in front of the mirror this week. How about that?
Okay.
All right, everybody.
I don't. So real quickly, let's talk about Baltimore and BaltimoreShipWatchers.com. So we have a website full of all kind of information where you can access the web camera, the live stream of the port. You can watch the ships come and go. We've got some swag, not really this polo shirt, but coffee cups, t-shirts with a really cool Key Bridge logo that ironically we had commissioned a couple of years ago. Here's another thing real quick that I wanted to get to, and I really didn't spend a whole lot of time. So there is the
Yes.
Port of Baltimore magazine. So I wish we had time to go into this because there's a lot of good stuff in this issue. And you can just, I think if you just Google Port of Baltimore magazine and you can put in your information and you, it's free subscription.
Yeah,
They'll send it
it
to
is
you.
housed at the website portofbaltimoredirectory.com. And so
Okay, thank
I'll
you.
put that link up there. And they publish that the MPA, Maryland Port Administration, publishes that. Depending on the year, it's either monthly or bi-monthly. But
Mm-hmm.
they take information all across the port from all different sectors: the environmental, the
Right.
legislative, the operational, the public terminals, the private terminals, just to provide what I think is a very good in-depth overview of different port entities. They've been doing this for years and years, but if you go to the Port of Baltimore directory.com, I believe. If not, I'll put the proper link here.
Oh,
You
cool.
can get the current issue and the back issues. There's a lot of good information there.
Oh, you can get back
Yeah,
issues.
they have the back issues there also.
But so there's a lot of ads in here, and there's a lot of nice photos where resilience meets progress.
Yep, that's
You know,
that's a cool.
I'm almost a little sad
Yeah.
talking about that. But anyway, so check that out. It's you're going to learn some stuff about what some of these companies do, and if nothing less, there's some great photographs in
Yeah.
here. Some aerial shots that because I don't know about you, Kip, but I don't have a helicopter, and outside of trying to do like Google Earth, there's some really cool views of the port in here, in addition to some information. And just one more thing, guiding the port through a significant challenge. Gosh, if that kind of isn't the understatement. New port director Jonathan Daniels focused on the future. So that's him right
Yeah.
there.
Yep.
And can you imagine you make this decision to take a new job and you move your whole family up from Florida,
Mm,
right?
right.
To this other place, and it's an opportunity for you to grow a growing port that's kind of different from what you've been doing. You know,
And the strategic plan that you put in place within the first month of you being here, you now have to just chuck it and
right?
start over.
And then somebody puts the veritable gate down and says, "Your port is closed.
Yeah.
You just got here." I just can't imagine. All right, so back to our socials. We are on Instagram and Twix, as we're calling it, as Balto Ches. We're Balto Ches on YouTube also.
Mhm.
And then we just enabled the Patreon page. So I didn't tell you about this,
Oh,
but we just enabled a Patreon page for the group.
cool.
So if you love what we do, if you want to kind of support us and the group for all the hard work that we've done over the last 7 or 8 years, if you'd like to make a donation, that would be nice, because everything that we do, um, uh, to make the calendars or to produce some items or going places and being present in meetings, it all costs money and gas and hundreds of dollars of outlays um, so that we can make the calendars that we sell once a year, or web hosting and emails. So there's a lot of expenses. So it's been 7 or 8 years. I've never really asked for a penny of donations.
Sure.
So if you like what we do, you can donate and help out.
Sounds great.
Appreciate it. All right. So what do we have for next week? Anything? Oh, we never talked about. We never talked about We never talked about like a final report on Fleet Week, which we're a couple weeks out now. We've got some photographs from Josh Messick about a crew on one of the ships that we never got a chance to show. And I'm sure there'll be more Dali updates and more port updates. And
we also have 4th of July coming up, so there'll be some maritime connectivity with that also.
oh, cool, great, yeah, that's a good point.
All right.
All right.
Well, hope everybody has a good week this week. We'll be back here next week with some more information. And you ready?
Yep.
3, 2, 1. Happy ship watch.
Happy ship watching. I think that was pretty good.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, everybody. See you next
See you.
week.